Welcome to Health Matters with Dr. Nelson Bulmash as he takes a fresh look at today's most interesting health topics with functional medicine's leading doctors and experts. Learn how to feed your mind, exercise your body, and nurture your spirit in the way nature intended. Catch him live every other Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern. Over the next hour, we'll introduce you to some fascinating people and engaging discussions that may provide you with answers to assist in revolutionizing your own personal health. And now, here's Dr. Nelson.
Hey everybody, I'm Dr. Nelson Bulmash, the host of Health Matters on the UI Media Network. Listen, if this is the first time you've ever joined me, know that I appreciate you doing so. My show is continuing to expand. As a matter of fact, today is a very, very big day for Health Matters, the show. And here's why. Because today, unless we have a technology glitch, which we're not going to have, my show will now be aired on 8 to 10 different TV platforms, in addition to all major social media platforms and 2 major FM radio station platforms. So before we jump in, I want to shout out to my friends listening to me right here in Atlanta on WDJY FM 99.1. And for my friends and family in Kentucky and Ohio listening in on WTTA 101.2 FM, welcome, everyone. What a banner day. I have an amazing guest for you, and I want to preface something. We're going to have an interesting conversation that some of you may think is more of a forward-based conversation. And here's what I mean by that. When I mentioned the title of my show, I had a lot of friends say, that's interesting. You're going into that today. And I said, I am. And they said, you know, Nelson, people are still really preoccupied with 2020. And I said, they are. And they're going to be for a long time. Many of us have lost many family members. I lost 5 last year, and more friends that I could tell you, including 2 of my best friends and 2 children of 2 of my best friends. So it was a very tough year. I had some of you contact me indicating that your houses were burned up on the West Coast. I had some of you say that your homes were destroyed in the floods and the hurricanes here in the Southeast. And a whole lot of us are still, as we should be, nervous about the pandemic. We have elderly folks and friends who are in very delicate states of health, and it's scary. We had recently, I quit counting, at 11 people around us that we knew directly or indirectly that had passed recently from COVID. So it is no joke. You know, it's something to take very, very seriously. And then you have the whole issue of the election and all the drama that went into that. And so a lot of you are still really, really preoccupied. I had some folks tell me, you know, Nelson, we're so scared. We don't know whether we're going to be able to keep our jobs, or we don't know whether, you know, our business is shut down. We don't know how we're going to get money to pay for our cars, our food, our homes. I got it. Please understand, I get it. And yet, here's the thing. We need to always look at moving in the direction of our future, because whether we're aware of it, whether we're conscious of how we're doing so or not, it's going to happen. And so today we're going to talk about a conversation that I wish I had a lot more time to talk about. There's a story I wanted to share, and I'll probably put that up this week on my Facebook page. I'll go live and I'll tell the wonderful story. It's a little lengthy. I didn't want to take time away from my guest. But here's the thing. If we don't walk consciously forward into our future, then our future is defaulted to something that we may or may not like. And so I say to all of you who are suffering, I hear you, I recognize your struggles, and I'm in this with you. So I want you to be very, very clear about that. I'm going to ask you for a favor today, and that is that the topic we're talking about is really here, and it has been here. And I assert that it's going to get a lot of momentum over the next years, regardless of all the craziness that's happened over the last year and a half. And I can tell you that there's so many big businesses right now that are talking about what we're going to talk about today, which is sustainability and fair trade. For example, you ready for this? I'm going to throw a real big one at you. I had to read this 3 or 4 times this week. General Motors, you heard me right. General Motors announced that by the year 2035, they will no longer be making cars or SUVs that are driven by gasoline. That's 14 years from now. We're in big change, folks. Walmart was quoted in an article recently to say that they no longer just pick people who provide them with the best prices for their products. They said it's very important to us that those companies we work with work from a practice or principled approach that supports the notion of sustainability. The following that I'm going to mention all said this year, within the last year, it's time to do everything we can to approach a zero carbon footprint. Google, Dell, Patagonia, and Amazon all recently came forward and said, look, we have to address this. We have a finite number of resources, and we have untold generations that have yet been born and are counting, I'm going to assert, on us handing them a world, if you will, or turning over a world that allows them an inheritance that's worthwhile and that allows them to thrive. So I understand that while your struggles are real right now, that it's important that we begin to focus on a vision that allows us to go effectively into the future, not just for those ahead of us, those who have yet been born, but it's imperative right now that we begin to look at what we can do to help ourselves be healthier, to have better lives. And my guest today is amazing. Her name is Sarit Marcus. She is a graduate of the University of Florida and holds a master's degree in public policy with a concentration in environmental programs and policies from the University of Southern California. In 2014, Sarit became a certified LEED Green Associate in Interior Design and with the U.S. Green Building Council. Her diverse career in nonprofit work spans from multi-sector project management and research for an international nonprofit healthcare foundation to spearheading a community awareness campaign and securing new facility funding for a women's homeless shelter. And she has far more to add to her bio. But she is such an accomplished person. We're going to cut that off so we can jump in because I want as much time with her as possible to ask her as many questions as possible. Sarit, it is a pleasure to have you. Thank you for taking time out of your busy life to join me here on Health Matters today.
No, Dr. Nelson Bulmash, thank you so much for having me. It is a pleasure. I'm so excited to chat about all things sustainable.
Wonderful. And please don't worry. My show is very informal. Call me Nelson, please.
Okay.
All right. So I have to ask you, one of the things, if you've seen any of my shows, you know that I'm very, very passionate about what makes people passionate. Sarit, you're really very passionate about the notion of sustainability. Why does it hold such a deep place in your heart and mind? And why are you so driven to help support sustainability throughout not only this country, but the world?
I thank you for asking that. I've always loved nature. I grew up camping and hiking. And as you said, I went to graduate school and studied environmental policies. And I just truly believe that this earth is a gift for us. And it is our responsibility to be mindful of how we live and to teach awareness to those around us who might not be as, privy to the solutions of how to live more mindfully. I want my children and their children to be able to climb trees and to drink fresh water. The UN says that the largest global security threat we have is climate change, and right. Our sea levels are rising. The water temperatures are getting warmer. The temperatures are getting riser. The glaciers are shrinking, and it's imperative that we act now to preserve the future.
Beautiful. Sarit, I want to share a few things with you. I'm a bit older than you, but I want you to know and to understand something this is on so many levels. Sustainability is so important to me. When I was a kid, when I was even a teenager, I used to go camping in very remote parts of Canada and Michigan. Mm-hmm. And I remember beautiful summers where I'd say to my mom and dad, I'll see you in a couple weeks or a few weeks. I'm going backpacking. And I would go up, for example, into the Keweenaw Peninsula, which I love being able to do this, Sarit. Bear it with me. This thing you've seen people. Can you see this, Sarit?
Yes.
So up here, this is the Keweenaw Peninsula, right, of the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And I'd get all my gear, and I'd have a lot of gear, and I'd go for sometimes weeks. And I'd be packing, in areas that were so remote that if you got lost, you probably could go 20 or 30 or more miles without ever finding a road or a person. So you had to really know what you were doing. But the beauty was that you could literally take your canteen and you could feed, you could just put it down at a little spring, fill it and drink it. I remember going swimming in Lake Superior. And I don't know if have you ever been to Lake Superior?
I have not, unfortunately.
Heat of the summer, Sarit. It's like 42 degrees or so, 52 degrees, I think. I mean, incredibly cold. But once again, the water was so clean and so clear. I would take my canteen after a long day of backpacking. I'd submerge it down 3 or 4 feet, and I would literally drink that beautiful, clean, 52-degree water from Lake Superior. And, I know you like to camp. I know you like the outdoors. We can still have that if we start to really implement strategies now. And one of the things that I want to talk to you about is what kinds of things can people like me who, I understand the concept of sustainability. And I do everything I can. I recycle as much as I can. I do everything I can to support companies that I think are into fair trade and sustainable practices. But I defer to you. What are some of the things that we can begin to look at that may be simple? And I think simple works for most people, like getting us started sort of at an elementary school level. Where can we begin to talk and to look about changing our lives and our practices with regard to sustainability and move forward?
So I think the first step is to just become more aware of how you're living, what you're buying, how it's made, how it's sourced, how it's being shipped to you, how then you're using it, what you're doing when you're disposing of it. So some easy tips, and then I can, go into a little bit deeper,
right.
But some easy tips for kitchen. For example, I on my website, I wrote some blog posts about five easy tips for a sustainable kitchen, 5 easy tips for a sustainable bathroom. You could read more about that in depth. But for instance, everyone knows when they go to the grocery store, bring your reusable grocery bag. But how many people are bringing their reusable produce bags when you're picking your apples, you're picking your avocados? That's so much plastic waste, single-use plastic, which is not, unfortunately, getting recycled. Even when you think it is,
right.
It's not, because it's so much cheaper to just make new plastic versus recycle plastic. So that's one very easy and yet with a big impact step. Reusable sandwich bags. Let go of those Ziploc bags for your kids' snacks, for your own lunch. Just the Stasher and Rezip, they have these great, colorful, easy to open, easy to close, reusable, made of silicone bags. You can, please do not use plastic straws, stainless steel straws, silicone straws, biodegradable materials.
Right.
Paper towels, that's obviously a tricky one. It's hard for us in our household with 2 little children, but also, trying to buy cellulose sponges, reusable microfiber cloths, bamboo fiber cloths. These are just easy, very small, very low cost changes that these products will last you for 15, 20 years longer. And it's not single use. For your bathroom, I think the easiest thing that people can do is put a recycling bin in your bathroom. Because most people you have your toilet paper rolls, you have product packaging, and very few people remember to bring all those, supplies into their usually kitchen recycling bin. So
right.
Recycling bin in the bathroom. Try to buy stuff that has zero waste packaging. So they're the natural.
I'm so sorry I've got to interrupt. We've got to take our first commercial break.
Oh, yes.
Sorry
absolutely.
about that. No problem. Hey, everyone. I'm Dr. Nelson Bulmash. You're listening to another edition of Health Matters. My guest is Sarit Marcus, and we're talking about sustainability. Don't touch that dial. We'll be right back.
Do you want to learn how you can stop sabotaging yourself? I'm here with Dr. Vern Morgan, and I think he's about to tell you just that.
There's great new technology which will allow you to change the old negative programming into very positive strategies. And we do that by using and delivering repetitively these strategies, bypassing the conscious mind and influencing the subconscious mind.
And to learn more, go to unitedintentions.org and click on Shop and make the authentic change today.
We're back. Once again, I'm Dr. Nelson Bulmash, and you're listening to another edition of Health Matters. I want to acknowledge my sponsor. I'm so proud of this company. They're amazing. What they've done to help us in moving safely through the pandemic is remarkable. So I want to take a moment and I want to talk about them. The company is so incredible. The CEO is Steve Roseboom, and he has 3 strategies for making it more safe to go back to work during these times where it's so dangerous, potentially, due to the pandemic. The first thing they offer is they have a device that can check your vitals to see, what your body temperature is and whether there's a risk of you having a contagion that's caused an infection. They make the shields that protect you. So if you're a bank teller, if you work a cash register, or in our office, we have a big, beautiful shield that allows people to come in and they're protected. And my wife, who's the manager of the office, is protected. And then thirdly, they have something that is really incredible that I think is going to take the world by storm. And that is that they have a device that produces surgical quality air. It can remove debris from the environment that is as small as 0.1 microns, sends it into what's called a kill box where you have UVC light and titanium, I believe it's titanium dioxide, which produces what are called hydroxy radicals that kills viral particles, as an example. I'm not saying it will kill COVID, but it has proven through research to kill certainly other viruses. And then it produces clean air that is 0.99% clear. We'll have a commercial for this, my next show, but this just came out. And so I wanted to mention them because I'm so impressed with the quality of their work and the quality of their products. Once again, safety. All right, Sarit. By the way, there's another cool thing, right? I mean, I just love the,
Very cool.
I love how much we've had to adapt. And, these, I want to just tell you about this for a quick second because I just love these people. My friend was an addict. He almost lost his marriage and his life and many years ago. And he decided that he was going to put down his addiction and he was going to get his life in order. And he did. And he's one of the most extraordinary men I know. When the pandemic started, we had a talk. I hope he doesn't mind me saying this, but he's such a good person. I have to say this. I'll apologize later if he's unhappy about it. But we had a private talk, and he said, Nelson, I'm worried. And I said, what are you worried about? And he said, I can't let my people go. The people I hire are all addicts, and they're unbelievable people. They've all repaired their lives. They're leading these incredible lives now where they have families, they have homes, they have cars, they need to support themselves. And who will necessarily hire somebody who was once a severe addict? And I said, I understand. What are you going to do? And here's what he said to me, Sarit. He said, Nelson, I'm going to pay them until I go bankrupt or until I pivot. I said, so you're going to pay them full salary? He said, I have to. I love these people. They give me their heart and their souls, and we create some of the finest office furniture in the world. And I hope I don't go bankrupt, but if I do, I'll know that I'm giving my money to remarkable people. And I said, well, you hold on to that thought because I'm sure as smart as you are and as great as your team is, I told him, Sarit, you'll pivot. And he came up with these 3. I was standing there the other day when they were talking. They had one group that wanted 60,000 shields for separating the students at schools, 60,000 shields.
That's amazing.
That's a big number. And they wanted them to be produced in a month. Can you imagine that?
Wow.
So he did a remarkable job pivoting, and he's one of the finest people I know. So I'm very proud to have Safe Tea sponsoring my shows. Absolutely. That's a nice story. Yeah. Thank you, Sarit. So I interrupted you. I'm so sorry. Let's go back to that. Let's peek into the kitchen, Sarit. By the way, your information is so fantastic because I'm a great example of somebody I really want to do better. Sarit, I'm that person that I always want to learn the next thing to help me lead a life that's better. And when I say better, like more responsible, where I'm polluting less, where I'm being very mindful about supporting companies that are all about fair trade, because I believe that every person deserves to be treated with honor, integrity, dignity, and respect. And absolutely. So, to hear that Amazon and Walmart and so forth are really looking to make huge strides in embracing the idea of fair trade and sustainability really warms my heart because it's long overdue. And you're welcome, by the way, to talk about that if you want. I know you have some things you want to say.
I do. I mean, I agree completely. The climate pledge that a lot of these big companies sign to try to become net zero carbon by 2040 is monumental. And they're going off of the Paris Agreement, which the goal of that is to be net zero carbon by 2050. So they're trying to reach that goal 10 years, earlier. And I don't know if you heard, but just a couple weeks ago or a couple days ago, Pepsi just pledged to, as part of this, the climate pledge, they just pledged to try to reach their benchmark goals by 2030.
Yeah.
So that is very exciting. Companies are really putting sustainability at the forefront. It is not a back burner conversation. IKEA has done some wonderful things. As you know, my company in the furniture industry, and IKEA is the largest furniture retailer in the world.
Wow.
And this last Thanksgiving, they did this initiative called Turn Black Friday Green. And for that one day, they opened in their they have stores in 27 countries, and they allowed customers to bring back their furniture, sell it back to IKEA at up to 50% of the original price. And then those sold back products were either going to get resold, recycled, or donated to community initiatives. And this is a pilot project, which they're planning to have now in all of their stores, a little section at each of their stores where customers can go ahead and just continue to resell.
Right.
They are very committed to sustainability, and they actually their largest shareholder just bought 10,000 acres of forest in Georgia to create, to protect native plants and endangered species and to ensure responsible forest management. And so to see these big industries really take a lead in sustainable initiatives it's important, because they say that by 2050, which is not very far away.
No, it really isn't.
If our population gets to 9.6 billion people, right now we're at 7.3, but at 9.6 billion, we would need the size of 3 planets to sustain our current activities. So we have to make these changes. Back in the day, it sounded theoretical, but now it's really within, this is approaching our, there's so many changes that are happening to our planet. So to see corporations taking that responsibility is, it's imperative, and it's encouraging.
Beautiful, Sarit. And thank you for sharing. I love to hear you speak, because you give such hope in answering the questions. I really appreciate that, because when you're in the position I am, where you get a lot of feedback from people, you hear a lot about the suffering of people and the struggles of people. And, I remember life was hard in different ways. I don't mean hard like, we were afraid of dying of a pandemic when I was in college, but gosh, when I started some of my jobs, Sarit, and you can laugh at this because it's funny, because you'd never get anywhere with it today, but I think I started at like $2.35 or 45 cents an hour. And hey, Sarit, I was a big deal when I was making $5 an hour. Like, check it out, I'm up to $5 an hour. And I worked hard. For example, I did concrete work where I got paid $5 an hour to take a jackhammer, or even worse, sometimes my boss would look at me and say, look, you're going to break up this driveway with a sledgehammer and a railroad jack, and I'll be back tonight. Okay, there are 15 yards of concrete here. You can do it. You're a strong guy. So, Sarit, I would take a railroad jack. No joke. It was strong enough to jack up a railroad car. We'd dig a little section underneath your driveway, for example, or your sidewalk. It was so powerful, this jack, that we could crank it up, and we would lift part of your driveway off the ground. And then I broke it up with a sledgehammer, like an 18, 19-pound sledgehammer. $5 an hour for that. So, this fair trade is very, very important to me, because those early years I thought were going to kill me. And so it's so important to treat people with honor and respect. And it was very hard, and it taught me a tremendous amount. For all you young folks out there, for you folks who are working jobs, you don't get a lot of money. I understand it. And it's important to treat each other, as I mentioned, with honor, integrity, and respect, because we all have intrinsic value.
Absolutely. Fair trade is so important. I mean, I'm sure you've heard all about what's going on in India and the farmers' protests, and,
yes,
their government subsidies being, possibly taken over by private markets. And again, then the farmers are not going to be able to maintain their already low wages. So fair trade is super key. Talking about big box companies, companies like West Elm, a year ago, you wouldn't be able to search for as easily for sustainable products. And now you can not just filter on their website for sustainability, but for products that are just fair trade or products that are just Green Guard certified. And so that's inspiring. I mean, there is so much waste happening in this world and hunger with something like a third of all the food produced is wasted.
Yeah.
And that's the equivalent of like 1.3 billion tons. And then there's a billion people who go hungry each year. So we have to bridge that disconnect.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to talk about what you're doing because I'm so impressed. You've opened up an online company. Please tell us about that.
So I started Minted Space. I actually had the idea for it about 7 years ago, but for various reasons, it wasn't the right time to launch it. And then over the past year, with the onset of the pandemic, people are spending so much more time at home, and they're having to reconfigure their current spaces. So now they have to be multitask spaces where it's work, it's living, and it's school.
Right.
And with people, buying new stuff and reconfiguring it, it was important for me to create a place where they're able to create a healthier environment, that what they're buying is sustainably sourced, how it's being shipped to them is responsible shipping, that there's thought to it, and that they're long-lasting products where we're not in a linear economy anymore, which is make, use, dispose, but a circular economy where you buy long-lasting products, and then when they have reached the end of their life cycle, they are regenerated back into the economy. So many people think that being pro-climate, it has a premium, but it's actually not. It's so much more economical to have a circular economy. So back to Minted Space, it's an online site where people it takes the legwork out for them, where they don't have to worry about, is this sustainable? Is this mindful? I went and I curated a lot of products, and fast growing woods, FSC certified, Forest Stewardship Council certified woods, natural fibers, and it's a home goods site. And also part of the company, we offer eco consulting. So right now we're offering for a limited time free consulting for people who just want to, hey, I want to make my space healthier. I want to know my air quality, my lighting quality. Maybe they want to know like what kind of products should I use. So anything that I can do to help. And I love, creative stuff. So this was a fun and yet mindful way. And I believe in corporate social responsibility. So in addition to these products, 1% of all sales go towards sustainable initiatives. And for every purchase, we fund carbon offsets for shipping. So we purchase credits to go towards sustainable initiatives for every purchase made.
That is beautiful. And on that,
thank you.
Sorry, that's really wonderful. I hope you can stick around for a few minutes after the show. I'm so impressed.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Sarit. I'm so impressed. We're going to take our second commercial break. Folks, once again, I'm Dr. Nelson Bulmash, and you're listening to the first edition of Health Matters in February of 2020. Yes, I just said that. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Greta Full, president of Golden Home Services, a premier private home care service for seniors in Georgia for almost 2 decades now. We all have parents, and I know I love my parents more than anything else in this world. And because of that, Golden Home Services makes sure we care for your parents as if they were our parents. Call 678-242-0084 anytime, or visit goldenhomeservices.com to select from our range of affordable home care services.
All right, I'm back. If I made the mistake out of force of habit and saying 2020, I meant 2021. Yes, it is February of 2021. We have made it beyond January. So many people were like, are we going to make it through January? Yes, we did. And yes, it's February of 2021. Sarit, come back. I'm so inspired by you. I love this because I'm at an age now, you and I are at different ages. You're at that beautiful age where you have wonderful kids, and it's such a special time in your life. And so you think differently, right? When you have kids, than say if you were single, or if you were just, seeing somebody, married to somebody. Yeah, it really changes the way you think, because you realize, hey, now I've brought new people into this world, and I have an ownership. I have a responsibility in helping to rear them in a way that not only do they thrive, but that they know what to do to ensure that their children's children can thrive as well. And I just really like you speak to that in such a beautiful way. I really appreciate that. And one of the problems that you just addressed that so many people talk to me about is, Nelson, come on, who's got the time to figure out who we should source for all of these sustainable products? I don't have time for that. So I really want to congratulate you and thank you for doing all the footwork so that we can reach out to you at Minute Space. And I can't wait to go on your site and see, what we can benefit from and what we can purchase that will help reduce our carbon footprint, because my family, everyone is aware of it, and we all do everything we can to be wise with how we live and the footprint we leave behind. If you're somebody that likes camping as I did, boy, you never, ever, ever thought about going into any place, these remote places, Sarit, and, leaving your trash there. And it was so disheartening from time to time when we would go camping somewhere and we'd find a Coke can. It'd be like, really? And so we'd always pack it out, because you want there to be places in the world where they're still raw. They still have that, you and I were talking before the show, that primordial quality of like, wow, this is what Alaska looked like. I was talking to you about this before the show, where I said, I have a friend who is no longer with us. He was a very brilliant MIT grad. He was an engineer. He was a journalist, and then he became a surgeon. And he was just a phenomenal man in everything he did. And he said, I got off the ship when I went to Alaska, and I just started crying. It was so beautiful. The air was so clean. The water, I sat there and I thought, oh my God, this is what it must have been like 200 years ago when the people from Europe came over to the United States. It had such exquisite beauty and captured him. And, I know that we can live the lives we want, Sarit, and still do so responsibly. And as you pointed out a moment ago, and I so appreciate you're so thoughtful in the way you speak. You're like always thinking about the next thing that somebody could object to in the way you speak. And I love that. And you handle it. And you said, we were talking about a circular economic dynamic, right? Where it's not linear, meaning we don't produce something and then we discard it. And I'm that guy that right, we're both Jewish, and so I always feel guilty, like, doggone it, I'm using another one of those Ziploc bags, and it's going to go, Sarit, it's going to go somewhere in some dump site, and it's going to take 400 years to break down. So, you've already given some great ideas on how we can avoid that, and I appreciate that. Let's shift gears a little bit. One of the areas I get some resistance is with my friends who own small businesses. Like it's great. And I love that these larger companies, we talked about Pepsi, we talked about IKEA, we talked about Amazon, Patagonia, and some of these other, Walmart, are really looking into the initiatives that pull from practices that allow for sustainability over many, many years. What can people who run smaller businesses do? Where are some of the areas that they can join in on this and help reduce the carbon footprint as well?
That's a great question. When I'm a small business and did so much by myself, and I joined the Sustainable Furnishings Council, which is an organization that asks every member to make a pledge of how they're going to run their operations to be more mindful. So a lot of the organizations, some members are big, and some are just small little mom and pop shops like me. And for companies, you can just LED lighting, energy efficient lighting, that is huge. And if everybody in the world, just a quick statistic, if everybody in the world switched to LED lighting, we would save $120 billion annually. So wow. If you put that, I know, right? If you huge. Put that initial investment, which is not a very high investment, right. Especially now, from 10 years ago, LED lights were expensive. Now, not so much. If you put that investment in, you will see it in your lowered electric bills. You will see if you buy water-saving technologies like the WaterSense labels. Even if you buy waterless technologies like the waterless bathrooms.
Urinals, right.
The urinals. This is a former client of mine, so sorry for my tongue twisting. But
that's okay.
All of these changes in your infrastructure, having better HVAC, better air conditioning, and better air quality, having better lighting for your employees, trying to create kind of bringing the indoors out. These are small changes that you can bring a wellness factor, you can bring an environmental factor, and there's right. economic benefits from it. So also just trying a lot of the certified products, while they're wonderful because they give consumers that assurance that it's Green Guard or it's FSC, it comes with a premium. But if you just search for recycled or reclaimed woods, that, for desks, that is an easy way to know that you are not contributing to that waste.
I think, Sarit, we're going to get a lot wiser. I'll share a point with you. For example, I had a friend who's a very successful contractor right here in Atlanta, very, very successful. And he said, Nelson, I really want to be more sustainable. And I thought, wow, really? He said, yeah, let me give you an idea. I said, all right, talk to me. He said, I just purchased solar panels. I said, okay, what are you going to do with them? He said, check this out. I said, okay. He said, I'm going to put them on my house and on my property. They'll heat my pool. They'll heat my entire house. They'll pay for themselves in less than a year. And then I will make $800 a month from whoever he has his electricity from. I said, are you kidding me? He said, no. I researched all of this. I said, so you're actually going to make your money back for these within a year, and then you're going to be making at least $800 or more dollars a year on this? Or I don't remember, forgive me, Sarit, I don't remember if he said, he was talking kind of quickly, if it was, I think it was a year, maybe it was a month. I might be wrong. But
it's probably a year.
Probably a year. But here's the idea that he's going to make back his investment in a year. Sarit, when I set up my own business, it was easily 15 or more years before I made back my investment. Easily. Right. In 1 year of putting up solar panels, he's going to make all of that back. It will heat his large home. It will heat his swimming pool. And then he's going to make money selling it back to whatever energy company he uses.
And now they're even making the solar panels where you can have a solar run for your air conditioning unit. So it's really cool. I don't know if you've seen the little advertisements, but we're coming to a really exciting age of technology. I don't know if you've ever read the book Off the Grid, but it's fascinating. A person writes about all these people who live off the grid. They use generators, and it's just a completely different way of existing. It's pretty fascinating.
Off the grid. Did you hear that, folks? I always get questions afterwards, Sarit, like, what was the name of that book that Sarit said again? Off the Grid, folks. I've heard of it.
And Plastic Wars.
And Plastic Wars.
The documentary, my good friend Lauren Barnett, she's a zero waste guru. She and a stylist here. She told me all about the documentary Plastic Wars by PBS. It really opens your eyes about what happens to the plastic and how much of it is getting recycled or not. So
outstanding. So what do you hope to see in terms of sustainability? Like, what predict from me, as smart as you are, give me an idea of what some of your predictions are for how we're going to further this conversation called sustainability. Where are we headed with this? What kind of further changes, in other words, do you see happening?
The beautiful thing is the reason that the companies are, and these big companies are making these changes, there's one real reason. It's consumer demand, and it's Gen Z. They are so digital savvy. They demand that the companies that they support with their wallets don't just provide a service, but they contribute to society. So the whole notion of just a company, making a profit, if they want companies that in their business models is corporate social responsibility. They're demanding it. They want to support those types of companies. They want to see the innovative companies that are finding the plastic polluting the ocean, turning it into jeans, turning it into shoes, turning it into like this product reprieve. So that's exciting, because the more that these younger generations are demanding this, that's what these companies will listen to. They issue surveys, and the top 1 and 2 issues of importance is sustainability, whether it's economical sustainability, social sustainability, or environmental sustainability. So I hope to see that continued demand on the consumer side for the corporate. And I do also really hope that people make those individual changes to lower their own carbon footprint, because households contribute to like 20% of greenhouse gases, each year. So we really can make a difference by these small little changes. Turn off your light. Don't keep the water running when you're brushing your teeth. Like, just small little changes that really make a huge difference.
Yes. Sarit, I have to share this with you. I'm so impressed with the millennials and Gen Zers. I read an article about the Gen Zers. Are you ready for this? 80% of them, when polled, said it is no longer acceptable to work with companies that are not looking into fair trade practices and sustainability. 80%.
That's amazing. And it's so, I mean, child labor laws, it's enough already. Like to allow for these companies to just pay such tiny wages when the profit is just, you know who's made the most money during the pandemic? Like these huge companies, and not the workers for them. So it's the people at the top. And it's just so important because we are only as strong as our weakest link, right? Like, and everyone should be living and thriving and enjoying life as much as possible.
And your point is well taken. I never really understand, and I guess maybe that this is part of why I'm not, one of the people in the top $1 billion class. But like Sarit, and this is rhetorical. How much money do you really need to have an amazing life?
Yeah. I
mean, really. I have friends that make $500,000. I mean, after everything, they bring home $500,000. Friends that bring home $1 million. Like, what couldn't you do after you've brought home cleared $1 million? And there are people like I've met people who make amounts of money that, and I'm not like an anti-capitalist. That's not where I'm going with this. Make all the money you want if you're being responsible. I'm a very strong proponent, Sarit, very, very strong, of ethical capitalism. Right?
Absolutely.
You just talk to me about ethical capitalism. You invent toilet paper, by God, become a trillionaire, because we all need that, right? But be ethical about it. Take great care of your employees. These people that make and I'll stop in a moment. Forgive me for going a little sideways on this, but it's just sort of heartbreaking when people can't, pay their mortgages or their car payments or feed their families well. And you got somebody who's making 400 to 1,000% more at the top. You can't run a business where one person is making as much as all the other employees combined. That's not an effective.
It's very disheartening.
Yeah. So
it's disheartening.
It is disheartening. So make all the money you want, doing it ethically. And you're right. Here's the thing, Sarit. Ultimately, I can't be whole and complete if you're not. Meaning, if there's a struggle in the world, if there's oppression in the world, if people aren't thriving in the world, then none of us ultimately can thrive at the level that we could as a collective body. And so be awesome. Be somebody who's innovative. Be somebody who creates these great strategies. Elon Musk, I don't know him personally, but I love what he's doing. I mean, he's forcing all the other car companies to wake up. I mean, he's going to have batteries on on the shell of the car that produce the energy to fuel the car.
He's brilliant.
He's brilliant.
He's brilliant. Yes. Back when I worked at a consulting firm, and we did a lot of consulting for electric vehicle manufacturing. Back when Tesla, we advised with them on receiving those pilot initiatives from the government, and that was back in 2010, and just in 10 years, it's blown up. It's magnificent.
Right.
It's huge.
Sarit, we're going to take our third commercial break. Can you believe that?
Okay. I can't.
It's hard to make. I told you, it goes so fast. Folks, I'm Dr. Nelson Bulmash. You're listening to another edition of Health Matters. We'll be right back.
If this content resonates with you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel at uimedianetwork.org to stay updated with our uncensored shows. Also, like and follow us at UI Media Network on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, and almost all your favorite podcasting platforms. Most importantly, if you're being censored on social media, write to us at contact@uimedianetwork.org to get your message out. And remember, keep raising that frequency.
All right. I'm back for the final segment of my show, and I wish I had 2 more hours. Sarit, you have to do this with me again. Will you promise me?
I promise.
Oh, yay.
And I'll have to be on the other side where I get to pick your brain.
Oh, I would love that. I actually love to do that. That's a lot of fun. It's most of the time, unless you have somebody that's there really to grill you, it's it's very difficult to run a show. People don't understand where you like have a director, producer in front of you, you have a clock in front of you, you're taking their directives, you're trying to manage a conversation. I've had friends that were guests on my show and they went, "Good God, Nelson, that was way harder than I thought it was." And I said,
it's a juggling act, I'm sure.
Yeah, it is. So, Sarit, let's look for a moment at this. We've had a wonderful conversation. I so appreciate your time. Where are we not looking at? When we talk about sustainability, where there's still glaring weaknesses that we really, really have to address?
I think it comes back to that conversation we had, which is the dollar, right? So the cost. And so even though, for instance, just a few months ago, there was a survey done by some International Fashion Council by the companies, and they said, the number one issue or number two issue was sustainability. But then if you read through the report at the bottom, it's like, but the cost of actually enacting that, given the pandemic and lower production or lower production rates, but higher production costs, is that disconnect. And so finding a way to move past that and finding, the pockets of those people who have, the ability to fund these initiatives. But, I think also the transparency and ensuring accurate reporting. Because if companies are saying that they are taking sustainable initiatives, but then there is no accountability and no fact checking, then how are we really reaching those benchmarks? So for instance, that climate pledge by all those big companies, there's 3 facets to it. It's, reduce carbon, accurate reporting, and transparent reporting. And so I think that is a key, is to just put that pressure on and to make the changes. And awareness. I think awareness is so important. Educating, your fellow friends on how to live more sustainably and making those small waves, that then generate bigger ripples. And I also think it's important not to take on too much at once and to try to say, okay, I'm going to do everything to become the most sustainable person. I have so much, to learn myself, for sure.
Of course.
But not taking on too much at once and making small changes. And I think that once it moves more into the mainstream, it has moved into the mainstream more so, but it just needs to continue to. And I think conversation is key. Conversation, funding, and transparency.
I love that. That's wonderful. So, one of the myths that people talk about is, Nelson, it's like, I can't do enough to make it worthwhile. What do you say to a person who says that to you, Sarit?
It is so worthwhile because you're living on this planet, we've got 3% of the water on this planet is fresh water. 2.5% of that is frozen. So we've got 0.5% of water in this world that we can drink. We all drink water. And, we're just using it more than nature can produce it. It is worthwhile because you want to be able to have a planet. You want your kids to be able to go outside. And if we don't do it, there's going to be real repercussions. It's imperative that we all take it seriously because it is in the near future. Each rising temperature, there's a lot of pollution and CO2, greenhouse emissions that result in that. You saw the wildfires in California this season. It just gets more ferocious each year. It's crazy. I lived there for 10 years and it was never like that. And it's gotten more steady.
No, we clearly have reached a threshold. And what's interesting about this, Sarit, is I have friends that are very conservative and don't really believe in climate change. And all of a sudden, like I'm a guy that believe whatever you want. Ideally, though, do things to help the collective do better, right? So we all trend in a favorable direction. I had friends that just like, no, I'm going to buy whatever I want. I don't care where it comes from. I don't care who's paid what. And it's hard. I do everything I can to live a life that's not critical and judgmental. I do everything I can to meet everyone I meet from, okay, this is where you are. And yet I ask everyone, look, I get this is where you are. What can you do now, right now, to begin to help be more responsible? There's an ownership here. You can't just say you're going to do whatever you want. That's the thinking of a child. The reality is that this is our planet. We have finite resources. Eventually, if we keep doing nothing but burning fossil fuels, they will be all gone. It's not endless. It's not like, Sarit, we have somebody bringing in these large barges from outer space replenishing our stores, right? They're going to be gone. Right. And so instead of being so antagonistic, so contrary in action and thought, let's get together and say, how can we start now and begin to make changes? You made some wonderful comments. You said, don't use plastic straws, don't use Ziploc bags, right? So these may seem little, but if you saw a straw in your front yard endlessly, and then another straw, and then another straw, another Ziploc bag, eventually, Sarit, your whole yard is going to be covered with straws and Ziploc bags. And so you're right. The point is so well
and your taken. Oceans.
Yeah, and your oceans too, right? And so, your ideas are so wonderful and so heartfelt and thoughtfelt, because there is no time other than right now to begin looking at what can I do. So I want to ask you this. Are there some good, you mentioned one book and one documentary. Are there any other references that people can go to, maybe websites or documentaries that people can become more educated about sustainability?
Off the top of my head, there are some, of course, I'm blanking. The Green Building Council, the United States Green Building Council,
right.
That is a great tool in terms of buildings, contribute to, like 30% of CO2 emissions. So they have great resources. Also, just as a side note from that, something that's very cool is the USGBC is creating these wellness neighborhoods. So instead of just having certified buildings,
right.
or certified products, and here in Tampa, we're having the very first certified platinum neighborhood called Water Street Tampa. And it's all about creating these communities that are, that it's about wellness. It's about, natural light, about vegetation, about having outdoor, workspaces. So that is exciting. But in terms of resources, USGBC is great. The Sustainable Furnishings Council, although this is furniture stuff, just reading about it. The EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, that's our government's protection, environmental bureau. And, just researching. There's podcasts,
right.
Tons of podcasts out there. Check out my website, mintedspace.com, our
there
blog,
you go.
constantly
adding, right.
Adding resources and tips. And,
Beautiful.
I'm sure there's more, but I'm blanking right now. I'm sorry.
No, Sarit, nothing to apologize for. I know that this is an area that is growing. It seems like and feels like almost daily.
Yes.
And it's one of those things that's like, okay, am I reading all this because I'm so interested in it? Or is it just that more and more people are like bringing it forth, that it's a topic that we're going to discuss and make changes accordingly? Because, like another one that was heartbreaking, and I'm going to share this in my story later this week, thank you, is that the salmon industry, one of the richest salmon industries, Sarit, in the world, was in the Pacific Northwest. The number of canneries, for example, on the Columbia River was astounding. And I saw pictures of the collections of salmon that they used to catch in the Columbia River. You just couldn't believe how beautiful, how large, how magnificent these fish were. And there are 5 species now of 17 that are on the verge of extinction. Sarit, they used to have salmon runs that were so unbelievable. And you can probably still get these in parts of Alaska, where the salmon runs were so monumental that you could walk across a river on the backs of the salmon, where they migrate by the hundreds of thousands to millions up into the freshwater tributaries so that they can spawn. And it's just magnificent to watch. It truly is. But I want to share this with you. This is where it's heartbreaking. Once again, I will put this together and put it on my feed here later this week, because it's such a great story, is that I had so much fun growing up fishing for salmon. It's such a fierce, powerful fish. And of course, it's so good for you to eat. And 2 years ago, when I went up to Alaska, I wanted to fish the Kenai, because some years before I had lost a monster that I told you about, a really, really big fish. And I just wanted the, let's go back and do that adventure again, right? Tom Sawyer and Huck Finn. And, the guides looked at me and said, Nelson, we can't do that. I said, what are you talking about? They said, they're not getting really king salmon out of that river anymore. We got to let it rest, and hopefully it'll return one day. And I was just heartbroken. Like, you got to be kidding me. And then 3 days ago, I read the article that they're seriously thinking that 5 of the major salmon species in the Pacific Northwest, once upon a time, one of the richest salmon fisheries, Sarit, in the world, has been decimated. And here's the thing. There are millions of conversations like this, right? You can go all over the world. I was speaking to a family some years ago, 3-4 years ago, and I said, so tell me, I got to know what it was like growing up in Africa. And they said, well, we're not as advanced as you are, Nelson, but similar. And I said, whoa, we're talking about Africa here. What about the lions? What about the zebras and the giraffes and the rhinos and the elephants? And they said, Nelson, are you under the impression that most of us see those routinely? I said, of course I am. It's Africa. Come on.
Me too.
They said, Nelson, you have to go to very specialized areas in Africa if you want to see an elephant or a lion. Lions now are endangered. I said, what, are you kidding me? They said, no, you've got to go to very special areas to be able to see. This is the kind of thing that I'm talking about. This is why, Sarit, we need to bring that forward-based conversation right here, right now, and let's talk about what we can each do. Sarit, I regret saying this, but we only have 90 more seconds. And the final question I ask everybody, and you have about a minute to answer this, it's what I call final thoughts. Final thoughts is the segment of the show where you get to say whatever you want. It can be inspiring. It can be thought-provoking. What do you want to say when I say to you, Sarit, please, final thoughts for today?
Well, first and foremost, thank you so much for having me on the show. Thank you for caring and for bringing this topic, on your platform. And just everybody that's listening out there, just, whether it's big or small, just make one small change that you can stick to. Research something, talk about it, and figure out why it's important for you. Because if you're passionate about something, then you're going to make the change for it. So I think that as long as we each make our own contribution, we can move forward towards a brighter tomorrow. And if you have any questions, please contact me at mincedspace.com.
Awesome. Fantastic. Sarit, thank you so much for being on the show. Folks, I will be back in 2 weeks with Anisha Anand, who is fascinating. She's an engineer and a nutritionist, and she has a very interesting way of finding connection thought of. Sarit, I so appreciate you. I will leave you all with this. Starting is always better than not starting. Nothing changes if you never start. Just start where you can. I remember many years ago when I thought I want to start taking better care of myself. I didn't like the way my dad ended up, and I thought I'm going to start eating better and taking better care of myself. I didn't even know where to begin. I began by just eating organic vegetables whenever I could, and it went from there. So make a change today. Don't wait for tomorrow. Always remember, be your best. I'll be back in 2 weeks. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on this edition of Health Matters with Dr. Nelson Bulmash, where we help you discover how to ignite your mind, body, and spirit connection. Join us next time when we will bring you more exciting guests and engaging topics. Meanwhile, feed your mind, exercise your body, and nurture your spirit. The United Intentions Foundation and its associates take no responsibility for the opinions and statements made by the talk show hosts or their guests.